What's going on, beautiful J4 family and community? I hope everyone's doing wonderfully well and that you're enjoying your Friday and that is the start of a beautiful weekend. Lots gonna happen and go on in your wonderful space and world. But thank you all for joining me here on a Friday evening. So today we are going to be talking about, do your babies get the full worth of the tuition that you all are paying as a family? College is definitely an expensive thing. As a father of six kids, five of which are either graduated from college or currently in college, do they get their money's worth? Is something I ask myself repeatedly. So thank you guys for joining me. By way of introduction, I have been a higher education professional going on to roughly about 28 years. Right after college, I joined Arizona State University, where I began to work in the admissions area and have always sort of pathwayed in working in the student affairs side of the house. And so when I talk about young people and their pathway into and their full immersion and embrace of this thing called college, I'm speaking to it literally from almost 3 decades of interacting with beautiful young people, some who have been profoundly immersed and engaged within the learning process, some who you wonder why they're there wasting your beautiful parents' money, and all combination to and in between. So I'm speaking from a professional background when I share this information with you, but also as an individual that is a speaker. I've been privileged to be a national speaker for about 2 decades now, roughly about 20 years. I'm currently represented by Campus Speak, which is a collegiate oriented kind of college speakers bureau that identifies folks to meet various occasions, anywhere from orientation, ethnic heritage months, cultural heritage months, to how to be successful and to maximize the collegiate landscape. And so I've been in that space for a number of years. And so I primarily speak to college audiences, but also professionals, primarily in football. In fact, I'm representing today my Raiders jersey. I just spoke to the Raiders rookies over the summer and truly enjoyed it. Different kind of subject matter, of course, but I've been in this speaking game roughly about 20 some years. And this presentation here is one that I've done for a number of different audiences, and it seems to resonate around how to sort of maximize and fully understand who you are and where you are, and how to get your full not only time investment, your financial investment, but also to get kind of what the purpose of a college degree, which is ultimately to discover and be inspired by the depth of knowledge and intellectualism that is out in the world, to then pathway that into a major, that you then pathway that into a career kind of opportunity, and that career benefits you personally. Maybe it benefits your nuclear family. If you are culturally oriented, perhaps your intellect, your education, your personal philanthropy can also benefit the cultural community from which you come from. And so today I just want to kind of talk to you a little bit about the data. I want to talk to you a little bit about what I perceive to be the problem, and then also what the solution is, or a solution from my vantage point. And so I want to say a special appreciation to those listening in. I see Mulatto Vanguards in the house, always supporting, brother. I appreciate you. He says, "Hey, AJ, I went to SDSU and I feel like I got my money's worth." All right. So then we have a testimony that whether Mulatto paid for that himself or some combination of scholarships, financial aid, and or mom and or dad kicking in to the kitty there. But San Diego State University, Mulatto, truly appreciate you, brother. And let me know if you have any questions as we kind of go through here. So, beautiful family, college is expensive. College is expensive. Looking at the data, and I put the link to where I got this data in the description there. But in 2018, probably the most recent data set I looked at, I imagine the numbers across all categories will be even higher if you look at fall 2022. And I'm also doing this because this is a time where people are going to college, they're taking their children to college, and college is a beautiful thing, but young people really, really need to understand what is the price tag. What is the price tag as a way of, being very clear as to what you're about to do, especially if you're taking out loans that you're going to be accountable to 6 months after you graduate, and then you're taking on significant debt. They say on average, about a person will experience about $30,000 in debt over the course of a bachelor's degree. To me, that seems low. That actually seems low, and clearly people are experiencing debt that they are sort of handled with 6 months after they graduate. They're immediately responsible to that. If it's the difference between going to college and not going to college, and college is something you want to pursue, certainly exhaust all financial resources that are available to you, but try to minimize debt as much as possible because you will be held accountable to that on the back end. All right. So case in point, Mulatto Vanguard says combination of Pell Grants and out-of-pocket expenses. Yes, combination of Pell Grants and out-of-pocket expenses. I don't see loans there, so congratulations to you, brother. Congratulations to you. So the cost of education in 2018 for an in-state family was roughly $25,000. Okay, roughly $25,000 per year, and that includes tuition at the in-state rate, books, and then also room and board and miscellaneous kind of expenses. But on average, some public institutions are lower, some public institutions are going to be higher. Okay. For an out-of-state student, basically they don't get the benefit of a residency rate. They have to pay a higher rate. The state subsidized in-state tuitions to cover an in-state rate, to where an out-of-state person, non-resident, would have to pay the full rate of tuition. So on average, for tuition, books, room and board, miscellaneous, is $40,000 per year for a beautiful young person to attend college on an annual basis. Now, when you look at the numbers of people who are going to college, those who started in fall 18, it was 19.9 million beautiful young people started college at that particular in that particular semester. And as I mentioned it before, these numbers are increasingly, both in the number of people going to college, but also the amount of money that is being invested. If your beautiful seed is attending a private institution, that could be anywhere from 50,000, and then if you're in the private elite range, you can get up into terms of six figures. So college is no joke. It's expensive, and are your babies getting their money's worth? All right, Mulatto Vanguard in the house. I did take out a couple small loans of about 4,000 total and paid it off immediately to grow my credit score. Good thinking. Good solid financial guidance there. Yeah, if you have to take out loans, you definitely want to take out the minimum amount, even if that means you got to struggle a little bit. You don't want to get to the point to where you're struggling and you can't prioritize college because your mind is, trying to work multiple part-time jobs or a full-time job. But if you can minimize your debt, maximize your budget, and pay off the loans as quickly as possible, as Mulatto talks about, it gives you a credit score benefit, but also gets you out of the game of having a significant portion of your check go to the FAFSA folk. All right. So the problem, beautiful young people, mom and dad, is, are your children ready for what it takes to be in college? Are they ready? Right? Now, as I talked about before in previous videos, they're in the warrior class phase, which is the age of 15 to 25, roughly, immediately following puberty, mid-20s, much more mature, much more life lived, and they are about to sort of take on grander questions around relationships. They've been in their careers a couple of years and they understand career trajectory, and they're asking more adult types of questions and realities. But are they going to be ready when they are 18 years old as a typical starting age for college? Are they ready? They're in their physical stage of development. Their peer group is on their mind. Romantic interests are on their mind. Their reputation is on their mind, right? But yet college is an intellectual space. It is a space for reflective, deep inquiry, cause and effect, connecting different kinds of themes and theories and philosophies, full immersion, intense kind of homework, intense engagement with the faculty, who are often the ones who wrote the book. And so your beautiful seeds are in a very highly intellectual, learned kind of environment, but it is misaligned with their biological stage of development, which at that age is physical. They're coming out of adolescence, their teens, puberty. They're entering into a physical stage of existence that'll be followed by an emotional stage, intellectual stage, and then ultimately spirituality, as they realize life is not promised eternal. But they're at a unique age where they're kind of focused in on the immediate moment. They're thinking about milestones, they think about Fridays and where the fun and activity is. But the college construct, the construction of college, is a very seated kind of experience, a very listening, a very connecting thought, a critical inquiry kind of space, which is more of an inward kind of process that we're asking beautiful young people to take on at a time where the intellectual self is not necessarily lining up with the physical self. However, that is what we have. After high school, K-12 public education, compulsory ending at 16, and then you ask your beautiful seed, what are you going to do with your life? And the beautiful young people discovered if you told the old people, I'm going to go to college, they would leave them alone, right? And so the young person isn't necessarily set fast or clear that they want to go to college, but they're balancing identity. They're trying to figure out things. They finally have choice after K-12 formality, but they realize if they told the old people, I'm going to go to college, the old people would leave them alone, right? And so in that mindset, we have to have conversations with our beautiful children about the purpose of college, to be clear about where they're at and who they ought to be in it. And so that's why I want to transition to in terms of identity clarification. All right. You were on a TED Talk. That's amazing. I'm definitely going to listen to it later on today. All right. Appreciate you all. Yeah, if you're interested, this is a form of this presentation I'm about to share with you in an abbreviated form, which is consistent with TED Talks. It's in the link should you guys have interest. Appreciate those questions, Mulatto. All right. So college for the 18-year-old is about identity clarification, understanding who they are and where they are. All right. So I've got I'm going to bring in a little bit of a screen here. So we're going to deal with 5 places, okay? 5 places that are consistent with college. We're going to deal with the house party. We're going to deal with Wendy's, which I'm referencing as the spot, maybe someplace they might go hang out in between class with their peoples. The middle one represents the classroom. The fourth location represents jobs, some form of employment. About 60 to 70% of students will have some sort of part-time job to supplement the cost of education and life lived. And then if they're a collegiate athlete, the track represents that. All right. So from a perspective of identity clarification, who are they in these multiple identities, right? Who are they in these places? Okay. Now, the house party is a critical age, y'all. That's a critical space that symbolizes fun, that symbolizes high social interaction. It symbolizes a place where young people can come and listen to the music they enjoy, to express themselves, to have fun, which is critically important for this particular age set. But who are they in this identity? Well, when I asked about 10 years ago in the Bay Area, the people they were hyphy, they were crunk, right? That's what they were back in the day. About 2 years ago, I asked them what they were, and they said they were turnt. They were turnt, Turnt, in this space. And then I think more recently, the most accurate one probably is lit, Lit. That's who the young people are in the house party. Mulatto, I know you're not 18 anymore, but maybe you can update me on my language here. So who are they in the spot? Well, they are social. Who are they in the classroom? That is student. Who are you on the job? That's employee. And who are they as an athlete? They're an athlete, right? They're within the space of the pool, the court, or the field. They're an athlete. Okay, this reflects 5 different identities that are consistent with the college space. Now, the first question you all can ponder as a family is, are we talking about 5 separate people with separate social security numbers and fingerprints? Or are we talking about one multifaceted, very complex human being, right? It's important to dissect a person's identity at a particular age set because you want to give acknowledgement and you want to legitimize and understand that a person, even though they're in the collegiate learning space, will not perpetually always be student. They have many, many different identities. I've extracted just a few here, but this list could go on and on and on. and it gives you context to be able to talk about, okay, what's your social in terms of, partying reality. How are you going to have downtime with your people and your friends? What is the clarity, understanding in terms of your student intellectual self? Who are you when it comes time to employment and for professional growth? And then if you are an athlete, what are your responsibilities and accountabilities there? But this next opportunity, you can talk about what is an appropriate state of mind for these respective identities. And so, if you ask a beautiful young person in the space of lit at the house party, are you formal or informal? And they'll respond almost ultra informal. When they're hanging out with their peoples, when they're playing video games, when they're hanging out in between class, is that formal or informal? It's informal. But here you begin to make a distinction. What is your state of mind as a student in the space of the classroom? Well, you shift from informal or ultra informal into a formal contextualized presence. You actually make a shift based upon context. It's important to understand or have conversations with your beautiful children about disposition and ways of being in certain kind of places. The kind of demeanor, attitude, posture, way of being at a high social setting, or just kind of kicking it with your people at a kickback, is different than the way you're in an intellectual space. Student is more of a formal kind of identity. Employee is also more of a formal kind of space. And then if you're a competitive athlete, obviously very formal. If not, coach will let you know real quick that your behavior is inconsistent and inappropriate. All right. Now, this is just formulating, kind of outlining, teasing, dissecting what a student is dealing with, both in terms of what primary identity ought to be front and center in a given situation and context, but also there's a way of being, a state of mind that accompanies that. But here's what distinguishes all living creatures, here's what distinguishes human beings from almost all other living creatures, and that is intent. Intent. It is important to have extensive conversation with your beautiful children around intent. What is their purpose? What are they doing? All right. Most living creatures operate off of an instinctual basis. They look for food. They look for sustenance. They look for shelter. They look for members of their own species so they can procreate. And most species, from wake up to go to sleep, are on a perpetual cycle of seeking safety, seeking food, nourishment, seeking water, and seeking to procreate so that their species can perpetuate. That's what most organisms do. However, the human being is sort of top of the food chain, and they are mobilized via intent. All right. What is the intent of a person in lit identity, ultra informal at a house party? Well, it's to have fun. It's to bark at the moon. It's one of the few places in society where you can actually look at a person of interest, approach them and say, hey, would you like to come with me in this middle space here and let's dance and rub our bodies together, right? It's one of the few spaces where young people can explore and see if they got game and, talk that talk, whatever the case may be, and just have fun in youthful kind of appropriate ways. This isn't an intergenerational critique. Our grandparents did some form of this. My generation did some form of this. And clearly, beautiful young people need to have opportunities where they can explore themselves and, make connections with other human beings that they have amorous interest in, right? So what's the intent at a house party is to have fun, right? It's also conversations around how do you have healthy fun? How do you recognize that things that you explore as a curiosity at 19 can be a full-fledged habit by the time you're 45 years old? You certainly want to talk about sexual good decision making, condoms, birth control, all of those kind of things, but you cannot negate this. This will happen whether you encourage it, support it, or not. Young people are going to bark at the moon in their own kind of way. It is human nature, and it is something that is inevitable, but you do want to have healthy conversations around a number of things to include consent, understanding what's in the space, alcohol, substances of varying kind of forms, and you want to have very candid conversations about decisions made at midnight. All right. But the intent is going to be to have some form of fun. As parents, you all can talk to them about how that fun manifests itself and keep underscoring family values around good decision making. Now, what is your intent at a social in a social space with informal identity? Is to chill, is to relax, is to decompress, right? You are dealing with intense amount of hours on subject matter. If you're an athlete, you then add in 20 hours a week between practice, film, travel. It is intense. College is a very intense kind of experience. And at times you do need to decompress. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, what is your intent in the classroom? The intent is to learn, to educate yourself, to fully embrace and immerse yourself in the learning, to become inspired by it, to become motivated by it, to connect the dots, to challenge and stretch your thinking around various subject matter from hard sciences to more sociological kinds of things, general interest areas, and then ultimately narrowing in to what your major core subject matters are. What's your intent on the job? To make money, supplement your income, and to develop a skill set that you can parlay onto your resume and future professional opportunity. And then what's your intent as an athlete? Well, that's to compete, to win, to get better, to leave a mark, all these kinds of skills. All right. What is your intent? Now, what we have here is a representation of balance. Balance. These are 5 dominant identities that are consistent with the collegiate space. This represents balance. A person has a chance for high social opportunities. They have downtime, a chance to chill with their people. They have opportunities to learn, to embrace, to immerse themselves in their scholarly self. They also have a chance to complement, supplement income. And then they have other co-curricular activities that they're involved with, right? All of these are critically important. However, what we often discover in the collegiate space is this. We discover that there's often an internal civil war between the social self and the thinking self. There's often this incongruency, this dissonance, this at odds with each other between the 18-year-old who is socially oriented, reputation is on their mind, their peer group has is very important to them, has high influence on who they are, coupled with they're in an intellectual kind of space. And you often find this reality where social and the intellectual self are often butting heads for which one mentally is going to be the dominant authority in terms of leadership, self-leadership at a particular given moment in this unique concentrated time of 4 years to get your bachelor's degree, or often 5 or 6 years. Who is going to be the psychological, the intellectual leader, right? And many people are battling between their social self and their intellectual self being the prevailing leader at this unique given moment in time. If they are rooted in their intellectual self, they're open to it. They know this is a learning set down kind of moment. Then they are maximizing your tuition dollars. However, if they overindulge and embrace and immerse themselves in the social side, then they're not maximizing their intellectual self, even if they're passing courses and getting decent grades. Are they getting the information simply to pass a test, to pass an exam, or to just crank out a paper? Or is the information seeping into their brain? Is it sort of there in a long-term kind of way? And does it get so immersed into their knowledge that it actually becomes a part of their prior knowledge base? And it is their prior knowledge base that they will call upon in the future when they're managing grown human being realities, when they're managing family, when they're managing their financial life, when they're managing homes and fiscal entrepreneurial kinds of opportunities, and they have bills, right? These are grown folks, 45-year-old realities, but which one of their identities is responsible for managing the 45-year-old self? Which one of these identities is preparing mostly for 45? It's not lit, y'all. It's not lit. It's not social. It's not, in some instances, it's not employee or athlete. There is one dominant identity that is preparing for life at 45. And beautiful families, you got to stress this with your beautiful seed, sons and or daughters, that it is the thinking self that is preparing for life at 45 years old with these kinds of realities. But what we have to realize, though, is that beautiful young people are often sort of set where they are. So we have to have conversations with them about what you believe to be the priorities at 18, 19 years old are nothing like the priorities of a 45-year-old. The same way the priorities of a 6 and 7-year-old back in the day are nothing like the priorities of a 19-year-old. When you were 6 or 7, playing with Tonka trucks and Barbie dolls, that was the lick, right? That was the lick. That was the thing to have. However, you wouldn't be caught in public rocking no Tonka truck or no Barbie doll at 19 years old. You just wouldn't do it because the priorities of a 18-year-old are vastly different than the priorities of a 6-year-old. And so if you can extend this logic, if you can extend this reality to the fact that your beautiful seed is at a current moment where they're all in, they're physically centered, but yet they're at a space that is laying a foundation that they will call upon at a future symbolic representation of adulthood. I'm calling that 45 years old. Then you have to convince them that they can have balance, but one of these identities has to be dominant, not just to maximize tuition, but to maximize a future life. Because the quality of life at 45 is tied to everything done when they're 18 and 19 and 20 and 21 years old in this collegiate space, should they decide to go to college. And so it's beholden upon us as families to talk to our beautiful seeds about identity clarification, to not diminish the desire for fun, to not diminish the reality that their peer group is critically important to them, but to encourage them to maximize the space that they're paying significant dollars to be in, and to maximize its premium and priority, which is to learn itself. And to do that in a way that's not begrudging, to do that in a way that's not resistant, to do that in a way that is self-affirming, that is done willingly. Because if you think about it, they've done everything up to this point voluntarily, right? From application, sending in the transcripts, selecting housing, picking a meal plan, picking courseworks. They've done all of this voluntarily. So it makes no sense to act as if you do not want to be in a place that you voluntarily signed up for. If you're seeing your sons and or daughters having some resistance, having some challenges, it's because they have not psychologically sat with themselves and decided who they're going to be for this unique period of life within the unique age set in terms of traditional college age attendance, roughly 18 to 24 years old. And in absence of them formulating and coming to their own conclusions, parents, you're best served if you have detailed, embedded, calm, patient conversations with your beautiful seeds about identity clarification, understanding where you are and who you ought to be in it. All right. If you can have these conversations early, the summer prior to starting college, have these conversations again early on in the process, certainly have these conversations when the grades come out, just about identity clarification and purpose. And a lot of times, if your seeds are not doing well, it's not because they don't have the intellectual aptitude or capacity for it. It's because they've not yet resolved where they're at and who they ought to be in it. Now, if they are sort of leaned in and they are embracing their intellectual self, but are still having challenges, then how do you engage institutional resources to help them navigate the academic side of it? Or if they're having some stressors, if they're having some mental stress, there's resources within the university environment that can also help with that. It's sort of a city unto itself, and it has an abundance amount of involvement opportunities, organization engagement, leadership opportunities, counseling support resources, health services, all of those kind of things that can address all the external kind of things that centralize around the dominant identity and purpose, which is to have an intellectually immersed experience and not just to go rotely through a process of 40 classes to get a GPA. That's not the purpose of a college degree. All right, so let me pause there, see if anyone has any questions. I do want to put the link up just right quick to see if anyone has any Agreements, disagreements, questions? See if anyone does. It's up there. Mulatto, I don't know if you're still in here, but beautiful families, I just want to stress that it's roughly about $25,000 for in-state per year. Okay, and students can go to school on average of anywhere from 4 to 6 years and beyond. If you're an out-of-state student, that number could be 40,000. Many of our children are doing that with significant debt, and in most instances, at the parent level, if the parent can't pay for it out of pocket, parents are also taking out parent loans. And so this college thing is very expensive, and about 20 million folks started in fall 2018, and they're all experiencing some form of trying to manage this financial reality. The question is, are they clear about where they're at and who they're supposed to be in it? A lot of students go simply because it's parental expectation, and they have not really come to the conclusion in a very determined kind of way that this is what they want to do. And they often found that if they just go to college, it's this transition, it's this pause moment. It gives them a chance to just sort of keep the questions off of them, right? Now, maybe they'll, once they're in the environment, they'll discover it, enjoy it, and kind of groove in. But there's a lot of incongruency, a lot of dissonance that 18-year-olds are dealing with. And you'll see it in their behaviors. You'll see it in some of the demeanor. You'll see it in some of the conversations they have with parents. But it's important. It's important to have these sit down conversations because the investment is too high. The financial investment, the time investment is too high for your beautiful seeds not to be very clear as to what the purpose of it is. So that was just a small sample of the college identity matrix. If you find value in this and want to perhaps explore this a little bit more, I'll put some contact information in the description. I also have a link to Campus Speak, which is the company that represents me in the collegiate space. If you are a college administrator out there and you think your students, particularly your first year students, could benefit from some exploration of identity clarification, I'd love to explore a conversation with you on how we might be able to make that happen. Uh, I'm not seeing any questions. Mulatto and others, thank you guys so much for joining me. Please, if you find value in this and you like the content, like the content. Check out some of our other videos here. Love to have you join us on future conversations. On behalf of J4 Conversations, love, love, love.